Today, we're tackling a question that, seems pretty simple on the surface, but when you start to pull at that thread, it unravels this deep, truly mind-bending secret about the very fabric of reality itself.
All right, so let's get right into it. Our story starts with a simple, almost accidental observation that happened in a lecture hall way back, over 200 years ago. And believe me, it launched an absolute scientific revolution.
So, our whole journey today really kicks off with this one question. It seems so straightforward, right? Why is it that when you have a current, electricity flowing through a wire, it creates this invisible field around it? A field that can actually move stuff without ever touching it.
Yeah, and like so many great discoveries, this one started almost completely by accident. We're talking 1820. A physicist named Hans Christian Ørsted is in the middle of a lecture. He's just showing his students how a wire gets hot when you run a current through it, and he just so happens to have a compass sitting on the table nearby.
And what he saw was, well, it was simple but weird. The second the current was on, that compass needle twitched and pointed away from the wire. But the wire and the compass never touched. It was like this invisible force, this ghostly push was reaching out from the wire. And nobody could explain it.
Okay, so to even begin to solve this mystery, we've got to get really clear on what an electric current actually is. Because it's not just some, abstract energy zipping around.
No, it's a literal physical thing. It's a massive river of tiny negatively charged particles we call electrons, all flowing together. Seriously, the best way to picture it is like water rushing through a pipe. It's that physical. So, if you look at a typical wire, you've got two main parts. You have the pipe itself, which is this fixed grid or a lattice of positive ions. They're just sitting still. And then you have the water, which is this sea of constantly moving negative electrons, just flowing right through that pipe. But here's the catch, and honestly, this is the really tricky part. For every single one of those moving negative electrons, there's a stationary positive proton in that lattice. They perfectly balance each other out. So what's the total electric charge of the wire? It's zero. A big fat zero. The wire is completely neutral. And that is the heart of the mystery, right? If the wire is electrically neutral, where in the world is this force coming from? It can't be a simple electric force because neutral objects don't do that. They don't push or pull other things. So what is going on here? Well, the only clue we have is that the force only appears when the charges are moving. So the key isn't the charge itself. It's the motion of the charge. The flow is everything. That movement is somehow conjuring up this bizarre force we ended up calling magnetism. But the big question remains, how? And this is where things take a turn into the truly unexpected. Because the answer to this simple little puzzle turns out to be one of the biggest, most incredible plot twists in the history of physics. The solution wasn't where anyone was looking. You're not going to believe this, but the answer isn't found in a textbook on electricity. It's found in the theory of special relativity. Yep, that's right. To understand a battery, a wire, and a compass, we have to bring in Albert Einstein. So, what's special relativity all about? Well, at its core are two big ideas. The laws of physics are the same for everyone, no matter how they're moving, and the speed of light is always constant. But a really wild consequence of that is that space and time are not absolute. They're flexible. They can literally stretch and shrink depending on your speed. Okay, I know what you're thinking. What on earth does a theory about spaceships and the speed of light have to do with our little tabletop experiment? And the answer, amazingly, is everything. To see how this all connects, we're going to run a little thought experiment. Imagine you're a tiny single electric charge, and you're moving right alongside that wire, parallel to it. We're going to look at what happens from two totally different points of view. So, frame number one is our perspective, standing still in the lab, just watching. Pretty normal. But then, for frame two, we're going to shrink down and imagine we're moving at the exact same speed as those electrons in the wire. We're going to ride the wave, so to speak. Okay, so in frame one, from our stationary point of view, it's pretty simple. We see electrons moving one way, positive ions just sitting there. We see a force acting on our little charge, and we say, that's magnetism. Easy enough. Case closed, right? But now let's jump into frame two. Let's start moving alongside those electrons. This is where things get bizarre. Because from this new perspective, reality itself seems to shift. The very nature of that force is about to change completely. Okay, Follow me on this. From your new moving viewpoint, the electrons floating next to you look like they're standing still. But the positive ions in the wire, now they look like they're rushing past you in the opposite direction. And because of relativity, that motion causes the space between those positive ions to shrink. This is a real thing, it's called length contraction. So now those positive charges look all bunched up, way more crowded than the electrons. All of a sudden, from your point of view, that wire isn't neutral anymore. It looks like it has a net positive charge. And what does that do? It creates a simple, plain old electric force that pushes you away. So do you see what just happened? The force we called magnetism when we were standing still has transformed. It's now just a regular electric force, all because we changed our frame of reference. Magnetism isn't some separate mysterious force. It's just what the electric force looks like when relativity gets involved.
This connection is absolutely mind-blowing. And it leads us to a really profound conclusion about how the universe is put together. It turns out electricity and magnetism aren't two different things at all. They're two sides of the exact same coin, a single, unified force we call electromagnetism. You literally can't have one without the other. They're woven together by the very fabric of space-time and relativity.
Think about that for a second. Your motion through space, your point of view, literally determines what you experience. One person standing still sees a magnetic force. Another person, moving with the current, sees an electric force. It's the same fundamental interaction, just viewed from a different angle. It's all relative. And that just leaves you wondering, doesn't it? If your perspective can literally turn an electric force into a magnetic one, what else in our reality is just a matter of how we're looking at it? That simple observation with a compass didn't just discover a force. It showed us that our reality is not as fixed as we think. It's something we participate in just by moving through it.